In honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the teens have already heard this once, sorry guys, but I just wanted to start with a short excerpt from one of his most famous speeches. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you today, my friends. And so, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have dreamed that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope, and this is the faith that I go back to the South with. Tomorrow, we remember the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Remember the manner in which he has inspired millions, the great works that he achieved, and the dreams that he pursued. This past weekend, members of the Youth of Unity from all across the Eastern region got together, and together we worked on building our own dreams. Some lofty and mighty, such as those of kings, others more personal, decent grade on the next test, better relationship with our family. And earlier this week, all across the nation, New Thought ministers breathed a sigh of relief as they prepared to give the easiest sermon of the entire year. So I have a dream. Dreaming is what we do. It's easy. It's what defines us as a group. Taking a dream, working to manifest it. Moving forward with affirmations, knowing that we are connected with spirit that our thoughts create after their kind. This is our life. We know its power, and we pursue these dreams. While I'm still young, 25 by the way, that was a bit of a debate after last service. But as I continue in my path, I know that I still have so much left to learn, and so much more to experience. But one thing that I think I've begun to notice is that with every great truth, there are some easy lessons, and some messages related to them that are a little more difficult. When it comes to manifesting our dreams, the easy lesson is the fact that we can do it. That by affirming and holding these thoughts, the universe will follow. But the slightly more challenging method, slightly more challenging message relating to this is the fact that we are not blank slates. Already incorporated into our minds are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories. Other dreams already existing. Some lofty and good, others our bad dreams, nightmares of limitation and oppression, of doubt and fear. For many of us, we can trace our ancestry back to people who came to this nation in search of a better life, seeking for new opportunity and a new world. For many African Americans, they can trace their history back to relatives who came across bound by the chains of slavery, treated as nothing more than property. When slavery was finally abolished in this nation, several intellectual men took a look at Black Americans and came up with several conclusions. A story from which we would live for many years. The story said that, well, Black people, they're naturally unintelligent. They can't learn. There's no point in trying to put them in schools or teaching them. But look at how weak they are, how young they are when they pass away. There's no point in giving them medical care. And oh, we better keep them in their own little neighborhoods so that they can't affect our families. This was a bad dream of segregation that came from a false story. Because for generations, these individuals, it was illegal for them to be taught or educated. So of course they couldn't read or write. For generations, they were forced to work incredibly long hours in terrible circumstances, given only barely enough to survive. As slaves, of course they had short lifespans, were given to illness. But many subscribed to the story that said that they were weak. And living from this place, they manifested and created this horrific vision. Luckily, some people decided not to embrace this false dream, not to embrace this nightmare. And they released this idea, this false story, and they moved forward and allowed for something new to come up in its place. In the 1980s, a gentleman by the name of Walter Fisher wrote a book entitled Human Communication as Narration. Now, it's a rather dry read. You probably shouldn't bother. You're not interested in that sort of thing. But it presents the idea that human beings are essentially storytelling creatures. Our world, we're surrounded by so much stimulus, so many random things and people and sounds, that to make sense of it all, we create stories. And these stories shape our values and our opinions, shape the way we live our lives. Even for those of us who recognize the power of thought, who actively affirm our highest good, the stories to which we subscribe determine to what extent we take our affirmations, to how far we're willing to carry them. When we subscribe to false stories that don't serve us, we limit ourselves in incredible ways. And I found in my life that one of the ways to recognize some of these limiting stories, some of these stories that come from places of falsehood, is to look out for a simple word of they. So often, we take people and assign them to a group based on a single characteristic. And based on that characteristic, we add many others. But we're human beings. Each of us is a unique individual with our own talents and gifts, our own weaknesses, rooms for improvement. Any time that we take people in a group and refer to them as a they, we strip them of that individuality. When the Occupy Wall Street movement first came about, there were some ideas that were brought forward that that I connected with. Well, what alarmed me was this notion of the evil 1%. How they are all greedy and they are all corrupt. And still we do this so often when it comes to political rhetoric. Looking at those who we seek to lead us, with each side saying that the other party, that they are uncooperative, that they don't care about our nation, that they are corrupt. As we've moved through our lives, I think it's very important that we look out for those little theys. One of the other ways to recognize some of these stories that can come up and can absolutely constrain and restrict and limit our lives is to simply ask the question, well, what evidence do I have for this? If we simply stop and say, well, what evidence do I have for this? We will oftentimes recognize the difference between a false story and one that does hold true. My own personal journey in life, after high school, well, I went through a period of exploration. I didn't go to college, but traveled the country, worked odd jobs, sought to experience life firsthand. When the calling to work towards ministry did come to me, I moved back home and started going to community college. There, many people said that with an associate's degree, you can't go to much place other than a local state university. There's almost no bother trying anywhere else. And for a while, I believed this idea. I believed this story that said that we in community college had few options. Then I remembered everything I've ever learned in community, everything I've ever tried to teach, everything I try to live on a daily basis. And so I stopped. And I said, wait a second. If I could go to any university in the world, guaranteed admission, full run, where would I go? For me, the answer was obvious. Oxford. I took the steps, physically and metaphysically. On December 16th, I received the letter offering me a place at one of the best universities in the entire world. I'm thrilled. And so many people were absolutely surprised and shocked because this was not in alignment with their stories. But indeed, the story was false. The opportunity was there all along. Moving forward, while I am planning on starting at Oxford in October, things aren't set in stone quite yet. Before I can be matriculated, I must prove that I can afford at least the first year of attendance, an amount that, at this precise moment, I don't have. There are many who subscribe to stories that say that if you do not come from wealth and prestige, you cannot attend universities of this caliber. But again, I reject that story. And as I move forward, seeking support for my future education, I remember that I am not alone. And this is a lesson that we should remember as well. That although we are individuals, and we each have our own unique dreams, our own aspirations for our own lives, as well as the world, we are never alone. We are part of unity, an entire family of support. Finally, this idea of recognizing different stories in our lives, it can seem a bit daunting. And it really is. Once you start going through and you start recognizing all of these stories that wrap up your life, all these stories about how you have to live and how the world works and how other people live, it can become a bit overwhelming. Luckily, when we kick things up a little bit metaphysically, it gets a little bit easier. In the 12 Powers of Man, in the section on the power of elimination or renunciation, Charles Fillmore makes the distinction between thoughts and ideas. Thoughts, he says, is little more than in the physical realm. Simply one more degree of reality. Just like eating too much, we can certainly find ourselves thinking too much. Searching for all these stories can equally become overwhelming. But luckily, the power of renunciation, the power of elimination, is about taking that moment to release those thoughts. To release all those thoughts. And give that space for a greater idea. For a higher idea. For the idea of spirit. And so as we move forward in our lives, confronting the stories and narratives which may limit us, let us remember that we don't have to pick through each one. I'll analyze it through a close lens and figure out just how true it is. By simply taking a moment to release, to trust in God and Spirit, to give ourselves that opportunity for an idea of something greater. By taking that step, we can become connected to something so much more powerful than ourselves. So much greater meaning than any story or dream that currently flutters around our minds. So as we move forward, to pursue our own dreams, some lofty and mighty for all of mankind, others a bit more personal, let us remember to confront our own stories. To confront those stories of limitation, those narratives of doubt. Let us remember that we can give space for a greater idea. And that we always have our Unity family ready to support us.